You should see the notification now that we are recording. And so the way this session, I'm going to kind of talk about kind of the 5 keys to grading in Canvas, because if you're familiar with any other learning management system, it works a little bit differently. But if you kind of keep these 5 things in mind when you're thinking about setting up a grade book, it'll kind of help ease you into using it without too many issues. Once I go over that, then I'll go over how you actually start setting up your grade book. And once we get a grade book kind of set up, I'll demo how you actually go into that grade book and enter grades and what some of the features and menus and options are that are available there. So I am going to start sharing my screen. Just make sure my Canvas window is up. Okay, because everybody see Canvas on my side? Yeah. Good. Okay. So when you talk about grading in Canvas, it's kind of doesn't always make sense, but you have to start with the assignments area in Canvas, because an assignment that you create in Canvas equals a column that gets added to your grade book. So if you need a column in that grade book, then you want to make sure you start by adding the assignment in the assignment area. And it has to be published. If you create an assignment and just save it, then when you head over to the gradebook, you will not see that column show up or be editable until you go back and actually publish that assignment. The other thing you want to keep in mind is that all assignments should eventually have a grade. Students who have missed an assignment, you want to make sure you remember to go back in and put that 0 in. There is a way that you can set a default grade and do that very quickly and easily. There's also a way that you can set a grading rule in the gradebook that says if an assignment hasn't been turned in by a due date, assign it a 0. Because you want to remember to do that, because if you don't, Canvas will calculate and display a grade to a student based on the work they have done and the work that has a grade, and not necessarily missing work. So a student can accidentally see an inflated view of their grade. So if they've done 2 assignments and they did well on those 2 assignments, but they missed 3 assignments and those assignments haven't been graded yet to add that 0, they'll see a grade based on the 2 that they did well, not factoring in those 3 that they haven't completed. All assignments, when you set them up, need to have a total points possible. Okay, so when we do that, when we create an assignment, there is a field to specify how many points that assignment is worth. And so Canvas needs to know how many points each assignment is worth so that it can calculate the total score accurately. If you do things like weighted grading, you want to use assignment groups in the assignment area. So if you specify in your syllabus that homework is worth 20% and exams are 30% and a project is 10 and participation is 5, you want to use assignment groups to set that calculation up in Canvas. Canvas can do that for you. You just have to specify those groups and assign the percentages to them. And the last thing you want to keep in mind is that if you want to convert those numeric scores or those percentage scores that are going to be calculated to a letter grade, you're going to want to set up a grading scheme in Canvas. And you can do that. And it's not always intuitive. It's not in the grade book and it's not in the assignments area, but it's actually in the settings in Canvas. So that's actually where I'm going to start. So if you go to settings on the left-hand side, once you're in your Canvas course, you want to make sure you're on this first tab, which is the course details tab. And then we're going to scroll down. We're going to look for this link. Excuse me. And we're going to say enable course grading scheme. Once we click in that little teeny tiny checkbox, a link will appear that allows you to actually set your grading scheme. So when you click set grading scheme, it will show you the current grading scheme that's being used by Canvas. If you want to select another scheme, if you want to edit this scheme, you just simply click that pencil icon and adjust the percentages for the letter grades that are displaying so that they meet your needs. So again, if you're interested in having grades displayed to students using the letter grades, you want to head into your settings and set up the grading scheme so that it matches what you'd like to use.
Can you tell me what is instructors typically do on that? Do they use the scheme or not?
It's all over the place, honestly.
Okay.
Some people prefer to display points, some do percentage, some do letter. It's all kind of whatever someone decides they want to do.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Okay. So to start setting up your gradebook, it really is pretty simple. You head over to your assignments area in Canvas and you start creating assignments. So for every graded assignment that you are going to give a score to, it's going to count towards that final grade in the course for the student. You want to make sure that an assignment exists on the assignment page in the Canvas course. To create assignments, and give me 1 second, I'm just gonna update that. You can do it one of two ways. You can either click the Add Assignment button that's at the top right, or if you look to the right of that assignments group, there's a little plus sign that allows you to click and create a new assignment. To create a new assignment, we're going to click Add Assignment. We're going to give it a title. So maybe this is a research paper. You have a place where you can give instructions at the top of the screen. Here's that important area we talked about earlier. You want to make sure you let Canvas know how many points the assignment is worth. So you enter the point value in this points field. We'll come back to assignment groups in a second. All of the other settings that are available to you are based on how you want students to submit. If you want them to upload a file, you select that. If they should have unlimited attempts to submit, or if you want to limit their attempts, and then you can specify how many attempts they have. If you're interested in using Turnitin, there's the option to turn on plagiarism review. And then down at the very bottom, you have the ability to set a due date. Okay. The most important thing to remember is in order for that column to show up in the gradebook, you want to make sure you remember to hit Save and Publish. We head back to the assignments page.
Can I
go ahead.
Question? What if I'm getting my assignments on paper? Do I just enter, like if I'm not having them submit on Canvas?
Okay. So what we would do is we're going to start off the same way. We're going to add an assignment. You know, this is going to, I'll just call it classwork, right?
Mm-hmm.
Again, same thing, you enter your point value, but instead of setting it up as an online submission, when I hit that arrow, I have two options that I can use here. One is no submission, but if you really want them to understand, no, you're required to submit, you're just going to do it on paper and hand it to me in class, then you would select the on paper option.
Thank you.
So that way you still get the column where you can store the grade, but they're not expected to submit the work online.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, and we head back to assignments. So creating those assignments, whether they're submitted in class or submitted online, is really how you get those columns to show up in that grade book. We talked about weighted grading. And so again, if you have a system where each grade is based on, calculated based on weighted percentages of certain categories, you want to use the group feature at the top right of the page to create those groups, create those categories in Canvas to do that calculation. So if, for example, students will get a certain percentage for essays, I'm going to create a group called essays. They also have some exams. I'm going to create a group called exams. And all I'm doing is clicking that Add Group button at the top right of the page, typing in the name that I want to appear for the group, and then clicking Save. And then I'm going to do one more for group project. So you can create as many of these assignment groups or as few of these assignment groups as you need. Once you've got all of the groups created, if you know that you're going to be doing weighted grading in Canvas, you want to turn that weighted grading on. So you're going to look at the top right of the assignments page, and you're looking for that button with the 3 dots. When you click that button, you want to look for the second option in that pop-up menu that says assignment groups weight. And then all we want to do is turn on the checkbox that says we want to weight the final grade based on these groups. Then you assign the percentages. And Canvas doesn't care as long as they all add up to 100. And once I hit save, each group is displayed on the screen along with its weighted percentage in the top right corner. These can always be adjusted. So if you needed to add or adjust, change the percentage for a certain group, you can either select the individual group and edit, and you'll notice there's now a field for percentages there. So I can adjust and make that 20. And then I can head over to exams and edit that and make that 35. So nothing is set in stone, just like anything else in Canvas. If you need to adjust those percentages, you can. Any questions about setting up weighted grading? And Karen, if you need me to run through that again really quickly, I can.
I don't want to drag everybody down. I'm sorry about the bad timing on my service person.
That's okay. Okay, so once you've got your groups, and again, we use the button at the very top right to turn on the weighted grading. You would just make sure that all of your assignments reside in their proper groups. So if you'll notice, I can click on the double column of dots on the left side of each of those assignments, click and hold, and I can drag them to the desired group. So if research paper belongs in essays, I can put that there. And again, if you need to create new assignments, just like we did before, you simply look for that add assignment button. Maybe this is going to be exam 1, 100 points. Again, if they're doing it in class, you can set it to on paper. If there's something that they're going to be submitting to you online in Canvas, you can select online. But here's where you will assign that group. So if this belongs in the exams category, I can actually select exams from the assignment group dropdown. And then once I hit save and publish, head back to assignments, you see that exam now appears where it needs to be on the page. I'm going to add one more exam to that exams group because I want to talk about how you can set up some rules. Okay, so let's head back to assignments. So you can specify grading rules for these groups once they've been created in your assignments area. If, for example, you give students the option that you'll drop the lowest grade from exams, right? So the grade that they did the worst on will be dropped from that exams group. You can actually specify that by using the grading rule feature for each of these groups. Again, look for the group you want to set the rule for. Click the 3 dots in the top right corner. Click edit. As long as you have at least 2 assignments in that group, you also now have options to set a rule. So I can say ignore 1 lowest score from this particular group for students. And so if I do badly on exam 2, it will drop that exam for me automatically. If there is an exam, for example, the midterm, let's add that really quickly. And this goes again to exams, and I'm going to save and publish. If there is something like the midterm that should never be dropped, it should be counted for everybody, no matter how they do on it. Again, if I go back into those 3 dots and select edit, I can specify never drop, and then I can choose the midterm from that drop down. So it will always count the midterm for everybody and drop the lowest of the other scores. So you can set those kind of rules on any of these groups as long as you've created 2 or more assignments within that group. Okay, if there's only a single assignment existing in that group, the rule options won't display for you. Any questions about that?
None on that. If you want to delete, or like as you're setting it up and you want to delete, or you're like, oh, I need to add one more group. I'm sorry, I missed that part.
That's okay.
But
so groups,
you can change it at any time.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay.
And you can also change the name. So if, for example, this shouldn't be called assignments and I need this to be called something else, always look for the 3 dots to the right. That will take you into your edit options for that particular group. You'll see the first option that you'll find is edit. That allows you to change the name. That allows you to change the weighted percentage. Here's the delete. So if you need to completely get rid of a group, you can actually use that delete to get rid of it. If you needed to rearrange, I find it easier to just drag and drop.
Right.
Doing it that way. Same with the assignments, you can drag and drop them around. Okay. Any other questions about setting up these assignments? So setting up the gradebook really is the process of coming to your assignments page, setting up your groups if you're going to use them, turning on the weighted grading, adding your percentages, and then simply creating an assignment for everything that you're going to grade for students. So if you want a column in that gradebook for something, you want to make sure that an assignment exists on the assignments page for that column. Okay. Trying to make sure I don't have anything else. Okay, so now we'll actually jump in and demo the gradebook. So to get to the gradebook, you want to look for the grades link on the left-hand side in your course menu. And when you click grades, it takes you into this kind of spreadsheet view of the gradebook in Canvas. You will see columns for your students. And the students who show up here will be the students who are officially registered for the course. As soon as you create and publish an assignment on the assignments page, a column will appear in the gradebook for that assignment. And as I scroll to the right, you will also see that a column will also get created for each of those.
You guys can eat.
All right. So you can see individual assignment scores. You can also see how a student is doing in a particular category, as well as the student is able to see this for his or herself as well. And at the very far right, what you see is the total column, where the grade is being calculated and displayed to students based on everything that you're inputting in the gradebook. So let's first talk about the different menus we see on this screen, okay? So at the very top left, we have this gradebook link, and this is the gradebook view menu. It allows you to switch from looking at this kind of holistic view of the gradebook, which is all students, all assignments on one screen, to switching to what Canvas calls the individual view. And so if you switch to individual view, it allows you to actually view the gradebook by student. So I could select a student or select a particular assignment. And it gives me that gradebook information just in this singular view by student, by assignment. The same options that are available to you in that massive gradebook area. You can message students who, you can set a default grade. You could go to the speed grader if you wanted to grade in the speed grader. All of those options are available to you from this individual view. To get back to the gradebook, we simply select gradebook from that drop-down menu at the top, and it brings us back to this main whole view, default view of the gradebook. The other option that's available to you in the gradebook is Gradebook History. When we select Gradebook History, it will give you a log of all of the grading changes in the course. And this is kind of a neat one. We've used this in the past. Instructors have accidentally cleared out grades that they've entered. And we were able to restore those grades by going back and viewing that grading history, because for every student and every assignment, you can see the grade changes and who did those grade changes. So for most situations, you were the one making changes, but in some of our courses, like our bio courses, our chemistry courses, they're team taught by 2 or 3 instructors. So you can actually see which instructor made the change for each student. Okay, I'm going to go back to the main gradebook view. The second menu that you have at the top left of your screen is the view menu. This allows you to manage how the gradebook is displayed. You can look at it in this default order. You can arrange it alphabetically by assignment name, descending or ascending. You can look at it by due date, or you can arrange it by points. You can also filter. So if you just want to look at the exam grades, you don't want to see this massive grade book that you have to keep scrolling to the right, you can filter just by assignment group. And then you get a drop-down menu at the top right that allows you to say, I just want to look at the exams. And so it will temporarily filter or hide those other columns so that you can just see the columns belonging to that exams group. If I turn that filter off, it switches me right back to the main view of the gradebook. Statuses is something interesting. It will color code, the columns, the cells based on, the status of the assignment. So if a student's assignment is late, the cell will get colored in green. If it's missing, this kind of reddish color. If this is an assignment where you've allowed multiple submissions, you can tell that this has been resubmitted. Dropped is where, if you set up that rule where you say drop the lowest grade, it'll shade in that color to let you know that that's the score the student got, but it will be dropped from the calculation of the total grade. And then there's also an option called excused. You have the ability to excuse any student from an assignment. So if you have a student who, for whatever reason, does not need to complete or does not need to submit maybe the research paper, I can come in for that particular student and enter an EX in the column, and it will excuse that assignment for that student. So it will not penalize them for not submitting and completing that assignment. If I go back to that view menu, the last 2 options under view are notes. There is a notes column that you can turn on. The notes are only visible to you. They're not seen by the student. They're not seen by anybody else. So if you're grading, you want to remind yourself maybe why the student is excused from submitting the research paper, you can add that little bit of information into the notes field. Again, it's for your eyes only. No one else has the ability to see those notes. This last option turns off the display of unpublished assignments. I prefer to see kind of a clear view of my gradebook. I don't want it cluttered by assignments that I haven't made available to students yet, or maybe it's an assignment they're not going to complete this semester. So I leave that on so that it hides the unpublished assignments from my gradebook. Otherwise, I see all of these extra columns that I don't need to see. The third menu option that you'll see at the top is the actions menu. This is used to allow you to import and export gradebook data. So if you actually prefer to work with Excel in entering grades and calculating grades, you can export your Canvas gradebook, make the changes in Excel, save it as a comma delimited file, and then import it back into Canvas. So if you prefer to work outside of Canvas using Excel, you would use the import and export options to allow you to do that. Any questions about those 3 menus that are at the top left?
Yeah, I think I have a question, but I'm not even sure if I know how to ask it.
Give it a try.
Okay, so so you have all of the things set up. Now, if I'm not sure whether I'm going to give a quiz or not, but I decide to give a quiz, then I can just add that as I do it. I can add that at any time.
Correct.
I go to groups and then I add the quiz, or do I have to add the quiz and then drag it into the group? Well, right, you can decide what group it's in, right?
Absolutely. So at any point, if you decide to give them a quiz in class and you need to add that column to the grade book, you would just make sure you go into assignments, add that quiz, this is
Right.
pop quiz, right? And this was worth 15 points. It doesn't matter. You would just make sure maybe it goes in class participation.
Right.
And then we just save and publish.
Okay.
And then when we head back to grades, you'll see there it is now in my grade book. So anytime you need to add something, just head over to assignments and you can get that added.
Okay, great.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, so we talked about these menus that are here at the top left. So now we'll talk about, you'll notice as I run my mouse over these different column names, you'll see that same little 3 dots in the top right corner appear. That lets you access the menu of options that are available for each of these different columns. So for the student name column, really it's about how you want the names to be listed or sorted, right? And so are we sorting by name? What order, ascending or descending? How do we want this displayed, with first name and then last name, or do you want it displayed by last name and first name? Really, there's nothing wrong you can choose here. It's just personal preference. How do you want these names to be listed when you're looking at the grade book? For the individual assignment columns, when we click those 3 dots, the menu looks a little bit differently. We still have a sort option. And again, within each assignment column, you can sort by grades, low to high or high to low. You can sort by missing so that all of the missing are grouped together, or all of the late are grouped together. But then we have some other options. Speed grader allows us to go to the speed grader. You access the speed grader when you've asked students to submit work to you online in Canvas and you want to grade that work. You want to view that work in Canvas. You want to add comments, annotate. You're going to be using speed grader. For stuff that you're entering that they did in class, it's probably easier just to grade directly here from this grade book view, but you could also do it via the speed grader. Then we have some options. Message students who, this is kind of a neat one. If you're grading and you want to send a reminder to students who haven't submitted yet, this is kind of like an automated process in Canvas where I can say, message all of the students for this particular assignment who haven't submitted yet, or maybe I haven't graded yet, so I can let them know, grades will be entered by Friday, please be patient, that sort of thing, kind of heading off questions from students. Or maybe you have students who didn't do as well as you'd like them to have done on a particular assignment. And so maybe you want to say, hey, I'm recommending that you guys reach out to tutoring services for help with, this particular topic or writing or whatever it might be. So you can search for students who scored less than. Or if you want to reach out and tell students they did a good job, okay, everybody who scored more than, let me reach out and let them know. And so once you decided which of those options you want, Canvas will automatically fill it in with the students who meet that criteria. And then you can send them a message. And it will send this message to them automatically in Canvas and deliver it to their Canvas inbox. If they have their notifications on, it will also send a copy of this message to their Writer email account. So this is a really nice way where you don't have to write down student names and then open up email and compose a message. You can do it really quickly directly from the gradebook. And again, that feature is called Message Students Who. There is a curve grade feature. So if you're interested in curving grades for an assignment, Canvas allows you to do that. Here's one also for setting a default grade. So maybe for classwork, everybody did that particular assignment in class that day. So instead of having to go in and individually enter scores, I can set a default grade for this assignment. and everybody completed it, so they all earn 100 out of 100. Once I set that default grade, Canvas will automatically enter that score for all of the students for that assignment for me, so that I didn't have to individually go in and set that score one by one.
On that one, what if it's everybody but one person? So let's say that it was a class participation, but somebody didn't show up.
Right, so then I can just go in and delete the
change it
100
manually.
out for that
Perfect.
one
Thanks.
student. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. We go back. So the next couple of options are based on a feature we haven't talked about yet. So you can post grades or you can hide grades. We'll talk about that in a second. You can also choose whether, as you're entering scores, are you entering it by point value or are you entering them as percentage? So if I say points, if I want to, this is something they did in class, I can actually just click in here and type in the score. And that's how you're going to grade work that they've done in class. Just click in the cell, enter the score. What's might be kind of hard to see, there's this little tiny arrow that's pointing to the right as I'm working in that cell. If I click on that arrow, it pops out what they call this grade detail tray on the right-hand side of the screen. So it kind of just gives you a bigger real estate to see the information about this student and this assignment. Again, I can get to the speed grader from this link here. Here's where I enter the score. Here's where the status is listed. Sometimes we get a question where it's marked late for a student because it wasn't submitted online in Canvas by the due date, but they actually handed it to you or emailed it to you on time. You, as the instructor, can always update that status. So if it is marked as late, you can come in and set it to none, so that, because students kind of panic and freak out when they see that Canvas is marking things late, that they actually turned it on time. And vice versa, if somebody handed you a paper late, you can actually set the flag. So if we come, let's go to this student here. I can actually say this was turned in late one day. And it just allows you to kind of track and let students be alerted to that information. And you'll notice as soon as I did that, it shaded that in that color to let me know at a glance that that particular student submitted the assignment late.
And then if you put comments in, where do those show up?
Okay. So I'll go back. Let's go.
I was assuming notes, but I have no idea.
No, these show up differently. And I guess I'll do it for this student here because I can actually log in and show you where the students would see this. So this leaves it in the feedback field for this particular
For
grade.
the student.
So for
Okay.
this student, so when this student is later viewing their grades, there's a place where they can go to see comments that have been left for them for this particular assignment. Once I hit submit, it saves a record of this, and students are actually able to reply to these comments. So if you ask the question, you know, did you mean to submit this? This doesn't look like the right file. Or if you ask them to please update and resubmit, students can actually reply to those comments or give you feedback based on what you've asked them in those comments. And I'll show you in a second what that looks like from the student perspective. Okay, any questions about those options? I'm not talking about grade posting policy yet. I'll talk about that in a second. But for every column, you'll see, as long as I click on those three dots, those same options will appear for me for all of those assignment columns. Okay, as I was entering grades, you'll see that the percentages and the scores in the individual groups updated based on the things that were scored, as well as the total is updating based on. So this is dynamic. As soon as you update a grade, Canvas is going to update all of those group totals and overall totals and display those to students, which is why it's important to remember if a student did not submit, make sure you put that 0 in. Okay. Okay. Last thing we're going to talk about are overall gradebook settings, and that's at the very far right. If we click that, it takes us into settings that can be set for your entire gradebook for the course. Late policies. I mentioned you can kind of set some policies up that will automatically apply grades for missing and late assignments. This is where you would do that. And we do recommend that you set this if you're going to use them at the start of the semester so that it's on and students will see this happening from the start of the semester. If you kind of turn this on midway through, it kind of incites a little bit of panic when a grade that was looking really nicely up till that point, all of a sudden adjusts in a negative way once the zeros or grade adjustments go in. So if you want to automatically apply that 0 for missing submission, so you don't have to remember to go back in and put that by hand, you simply want to turn that checkbox on, and then you want to set the percentage to 0. And what Canvas will do is once that due date passes that you've set for an assignment and the student has not submitted, it will automatically add that 0 to the gradebook. Now you can always overwrite this. If a student submits the assignment 2 days later and you go in and grade, it will remove that 0 and replace it with what you've entered. You also have the ability to apply deductions. So if you want to penalize students automatically for lateness, you can do that as well. Again, you would simply turn the checkbox on, excuse me, specify what the submission deduction should be. Is it 2% per day? There's a nice one here that says per hour.
That seems hard to manage.
That seems also kind of a little cruel. But yeah, most instructors choose by day and specify the percent. And you can also say, deduct that 2%, but the lowest grade should be a 70. So if they did the work, no matter how late it was turned in, they can earn at least this 70%, right? So it will do this deduction until it gets to that point, and then it stays at the 70%. If you don't want to set those options up, you simply just don't turn those check boxes on. And so the last thing we'll talk about in terms of overall gradebook kind of settings is grade posting policy. So grade posting policy is something that you want to set when you want to define or kind of control when grades are released to students and how grades are released to students. So the default setting is that grades are automatically posted. And what that means is as soon as you enter the score in that field and submit and move to the next student, Canvas notifies that student they've been graded. That student is able to go into the gradebook and see that score immediately, okay? Some instructors prefer to choose the manually post grades. And what that does is it kind of hides or locks the column. So it doesn't allow them to see the grades until you manually release them. And that's kind of helpful if you're grading essays, research papers, you've got a big class, you're going to have somebody who's done first and somebody who's done hours or days later. If you'd prefer to release all of the scores at once to kind of prevent the questions from students about why I'm not graded yet, when's my score going to be updated, you can choose to manually post those scores. If we set it here, it sets it for every assignment in the gradebook for the entire gradebook. So if you know that you want to do this for every single assignment, go ahead and set it at the kind of course level here in the settings area. I'm not going to do that at this point. I'm just going to leave it to automatically and hit update. We'll go back to each individual column though. Remember, every single column also has this grade posting policy option. So you can turn it on for individual assignments. So if you want them to be able to see grades immediately for most assignments, but then there's a couple like the research paper that you kind of want to control that, then you can set individually, the research paper is going to be set to manually post grade. And maybe the midterm is going to be set to manually post grade, while everything else is set to automatically. What that does, if you'll notice, underneath the title of the column, the word manual appears. So it lets you know at a glance that when you're grading this particular assignment, students will not be able to see the scores until you manually post them. So I'm gonna plug some scores.
You'll show us how to manually post.
Absolutely. Yep. So I'm gonna put in some scores for the midterm. And you'll notice as I entered scores, a new icon appeared at the left. And that's kind of a visual reminder to you. You've entered scores, but your students can't see this yet. So that's kind of this is not visible to students yet. If I go back to that 3 dots in the top right corner, there's now an option that says post grades. When I click post grades, I get this little pop-up on the right-hand side, and it lets me know that currently there are 3 hidden grades. I have 2 options. I can release it for everyone, or I can release it just to the students who've been graded. And in this case, I just want to do graded because there are still 3 students who I need to hold those grades hidden until they've submitted. So I select graded, and then I say post. And I get this little success message that lets me know everything's posted. The little eye disappears, and that's kind of the visual indicator. And so if I go back now and grade the last 2 students, you'll see the eye comes back. So it kind of tries to give you this visual indicator to remind you to manually release those scores. So again, that eye appears. If I click the dots, I choose to post grades. Now I can again say for the 2 that are hidden, go ahead and post. And as soon as I do that, all of the notifications related to that assignment go out to students and they're able to go in and check their grades. Okay, questions about that?
I actually have a question about something you talked about a little bit earlier.
Okay.
And that has to do with statuses, the labels and those color codes. Is if you do that for the overall grade book, or do you have to do that per assignment?
So it's set up automatically.
Okay.
And it's kind of controlled by when you create the assignment, if you specify a due date, it will automatically shade those columns in if a student doesn't submit by the due date or if it's late. It automatically does that based on the due date setting for the assignment when you create it. So it's not something you have to manually do.
Thank you.
Okay.
And that's kind of tricky, right? Because if it's due today, they hand it in, but I don't get it graded until Monday, it'll show up.
So
that might be a little alarming for them.
If it's an on paper assignment, yeah, you can choose not to put a due date for that one, but maybe just for the ones that they're actually physically going to upload and submit in Canvas. But again, if it does put it late, you have the ability when you're grading each individual student to say, don't put this as late. This is a none status. Yeah.
Got it. Okay.
Questions? Because what I'm going to do really quickly is just show you the speed grader interface, because the whole time we've been working here in the gradebook, and the other interface that you can work from is actually the speed grader. So I mentioned, and there's like 50 million ways I feel like to get to the speed grader. So if you're ever like, I don't remember how you get there, there's so many different ways. There is no wrong one. But if you're in the gradebook itself, when I click the 3 dots at the top right corner, you'll find the link for the speed grader, okay? Also, if I'm grading an individual student and I've clicked that arrow and I've popped out that grade detail tray, there's a link for the speed grader at the top there. And if that's not confusing enough, if we go back into the course and we go to assignments and we go to a particular assignment, there again is a link to the speed grader. So you can kind of get there from a bunch of different ways in Canvas. But this is what the speed grader basically looks like. It's a different interface. If this was an assignment that students actually uploaded and submitted in Canvas, you would see a preview of that submission here in the frame on the left side of the screen. So if it was a Word doc, you would actually be able to scroll and look at the Word doc and read the Word doc. If it's a PowerPoint, you would actually be able to see the PowerPoint PDF images. You would actually be able to see that submission here on the left. On the right-hand side is where you would actually do the grading. So that same field where you could enter the numeric score. Here's the option to add comments. So the same options that you had from the gradebook, you also have here. You do have some additional ones. If you needed to return their file, maybe you downloaded their Word doc, made some comments or suggestions directly in the Word doc, you could attach that modified file and send it back to them. This allows you to record media comments. So if you want to talk and record your comments, you can do that using the media comment option. At the top right is the list of students. So same list that we saw in the gradebook is just available in the kind of this drop-down format here, but the arrows that are at the left and the right of the student name allow us to navigate to the next student in the list. So it's just a different view. This view, this speed grader, really is the one you want to use if they're submitting online work in Canvas, because it allows you to kind of preview the work on the left and score it here on the right. If really you are just putting in grades for things that they turned in class and you've manually graded a paper, you're probably going to work 90% of the time in this gradebook view here. Any questions though about that speed grader?
Can you just share the types of things that they can upload in SpeedGrader?
Sure.
Obviously I get the research paper, but can they upload a video? Can they upload?
They absolutely can. Yeah,
Okay.
so you can create an assignment, and I will go back to the assignments area and I'll create an assignment. So maybe this is like a interview recording assignment, right? So instead of on paper, like we did for the stuff they're doing in class, we're going to say this is an online assignment. And what you want to turn on for what we're recommending that you turn on is text entry. What this allows them to do is access Kaltura from the assignment, and it allows them to kind of record on the fly using Kaltura or upload a video they've created on their phone into Kaltura and submit it to you. So if you're looking for those video submissions, choose this text entry option. What they could also do, if it's a PowerPoint presentation, it's a file upload. If it's a PDF, it's a file upload. For the Word doc, it's a file upload. But for that video option, we're going to recommend text entry. Everything else stays the same. We save and publish. And what I'll do really quickly is I will switch to student mode so you can kind of see what that looks like.
That'd be awesome.
From the
because
student
like the text entry wouldn't have been intuitive, I don't think, for me.
No, yeah, that one.
For a video.
Okay.
I would have picked that last.
Okay, so you should now be seeing two simple courses I'm in as a student right now. This is the course where I've been playing, so I'm going to go into Canvas Fundamentals. So really quickly, they still see the grades link like you do, but when they click grades, what they see is a little bit different. First thing they'll notice is if there are any new grades that you've entered, there'll be an indicator to the right of that grades, letting them know that there's one new grade posted. When they click grades, this is their view of the grade book. So they don't see that whole spreadsheet with everybody's name and everybody's grades. They see their own individual assignments. So they can see each assignment. They can see what the score was they received. They can see what it was out of. And that little bubble lets them know that there were comments left by the instructor. So if they see that icon, that's an indication that there are comments. And if I click that little bubble, the comment is actually displayed to them. Okay, so now let's head over to assignments. And we call this the interview recording assignment. So as the student, this is what it looks like when you set it up for text entry. The Kaltura option, which allows them to do the recording or upload the recording, is this little rainbow burst. And they can click that icon. They're going to say add new. If they're uploading a video that they created outside of Canvas, you know, on their computer, on their phone, they're going to do what's called media upload. And that allows them to grab and upload that video that they've recorded. Express capture will allow them to kind of record on the fly using Kaltura right here. So if they just want to right now do this recording, Express capture allows them to do that. And so once they've selected, and I want to know if I can find something. Let's just do something really quickly. If it doesn't crap out. Okay. So if they want to record on the fly, they're just going to record just like I'm doing right now. Once they're finished, they can download it. They can choose to use it. It's saving the video. Do you want to submit this? Yes. So we do have instructions that we can share. If you know that you're going to have students doing this kind of assignment, we can provide those instructions to you and share with them so they would know what to do. But again, once
that was my
done,
next question is, do they know how to do this? Yeah.
They may not. So,
Okay.
but it really is kind of a simple do this, do this, do this. And
Okay.
we have a video as well as a handout.
If you could send it to me, I will have a video upload. Or
Okay.
They're going to have a digital media upload. It could be a video, it could be a blog. You know what I mean? It could be anything.
Okay.
So that's one
So
of the
I will send you
assignments.
both how to create the video assignment from the teacher side as well as how to submit for the students.
Yeah, I just want to make sure if I get one of them, they're like, I don't know how to do it.
Yeah.
Thank
Okay,
you.
I'll make sure I get that to you.
I will
But yeah,
definitely, and I will share it. I think some of my peers are going to use the same thing. So
okay.
I will forward it on as well.
Okay, so let's go back. For everything else, you'll notice if I specified that it was a on paper assignment, the option to do something is not here. So they cannot upload once you specified that it's on paper or no submission.
Mm-hmm.
So if you accidentally created an assignment and forgot to turn on the online, this is what it will look like. And all you would have to do would be edit the assignment and add the option to online submission. And then it would allow them to be able to upload and submit. And again, for that video recording, it's text entry is what you're using in the online submission.
So quick question. So you, this is just such a silly question. You, even if you're not having your students do submission of assignments to Canvas, you still have to put the you have to go to Canvas, do assignments first, and then that
Correct.
that gets converted into the grade book.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, so even if you have no intention ever of asking them to upload and submit anything in Canvas, if you want to be able to store those grades in Canvas so they can see those grades in Canvas, you want to create an assignment for every single one of those.
Okay. All right. Yeah. And another question with SpeedGrader, can you actually do editing of the students, like line editing?
You can do annotating. So let me really quickly create an assignment. And then I'll go in as the test student and submit so that you can see the options. So I'm going to save and publish that. And now I'm not going to share my screen, but I'm going to really quickly go in and submit something.
You're going to cut and paste from somewhere.
Okay. And I'm going to submit. Okay. So now as the instructor, if I refresh here, now you'll see that it tells me that there's one submission, right? 0 of 1, right? So I can go to SpeedGrader. And here's the preview of that submission.
That's work.
So these tools at the top allow me to annotate. So if I wanted to kind of point out here and say, you know, use a different phrase possibly, right? If I wanted to highlight something else, you have the ability to annotate and leave comments. So I've highlighted and now I'm explaining why I highlighted, right? So you can use the bubble, you can use the highlight, you can actually add text. So if you wanted to, you know, give an example of what could have been added here, right? You can also do strike. So if I just want to say that shouldn't be there. So the kind of the same options you would have in Word are available here, and you're doing this right here within the Canvas. You don't have to download, open it, do the changes, save it, and then return it back to them. So you would just use these options here. Students can see this when they are reviewing their grade on this particular assignment. There's an area where they can go in and look and view those comments and view all of the annotations that you've added to this particular submission. And this works for Word documents, PDF documents, PowerPoint presentations, pretty much any of the accepted file types. The only time you cannot do this annotation if it's a plain text submission. So
if you do use SpeedGrader and then you put the grade in, then that automatically goes into the grade book?
Absolutely. So if I put this here as a 90, I can even give overall feedback here. And if I hit submit, now if I go back, I will go back in as this student. Hang on. And I go in as this student. That was essay 1. So I can see as that student, there's that 90 that was entered. There was feedback I typed. If I click the bubble, it shows me overall feedback here. To actually see the annotated document, I just want to click view feedback.
I see.
And there it is. I can see exactly what you've entered from the instructor side of things. So I get to see the annotations, I get to see the text feedback as well as the grade.
Good. And then another question. At the beginning, you said that you can also connect to turnitin.com, because I mean, normally I'm kind of old fashioned. I would have them give me a paper assignment, but I also have them upload it to Turnitin, you know, because I do always do the plagiarism filter. So how does that work in relationship to the SpeedGrader you were saying? So
if you wanted an assignment to be kind of run through the plagiarism detection, right? I'll head over to assignments. We'll do another assignment. You know, this is.
And while you're there, just real quickly, you had text and file upload checked down below, correct?
Yep.
Text entry. Okay, thanks. I just wanted to make sure I caught that.
Yeah, so text entry is what you definitely want to use for your video recordings. If you wanted students to be able to, maybe these are kind of like really quick reflective questions, you don't necessarily need them to have to type it in Word and save it and upload. You could use just text entry so they have a place to just give you that reflection really quickly. The only got you with that is you don't have the ability to annotate those text entries. So if you wanted to be able to annotate, you'd want to set it to file upload. So for turn it in, you're going to make sure it's set to file upload, but then you want to come down to plagiarism review, and instead of none, you just select turn it in from the drop down.
And I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
And I'm just waiting for it to update. But what that does is it creates the assignment as a turn it in assignment using the integration with Canvas and turn it in. And so anything that they submit to this assignment will automatically run through Turnitin's plagiarism detection and generates what they call an originality report.
Right.
You were able to view that report for each student and see the percentage, and it's going really, really slowly. I don't know if it's my internet or what, but eventually there would be some settings appearing here that I could set here. You have the ability to control whether students can see the report as well, whether it's just for you, what kind of, do you want it to save it in the repository? You know, those are the settings that you would see here. And then that report would be visible to you, visible to students if you chose to have it. And you would just be able to review it and look at it as you're grading the assignment.
So what I do now, so in other words, so what I do now, I mean, like I have to enter each course and to turn it in. I get a course code, a password that the students have to use. And I set all my assignments. I have to type them in to turn it in for each class.
And you wouldn't have, you doing it this way, you eliminate all of that.
Oh, that's great. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Cool. That's one reason to use it.
Yeah. Yeah. Any other questions about that? I'm just checking my notes to make sure I've covered everything I was supposed to from this session. And it looks like I have. So we have plenty of time. If you have questions about stuff that's not related, or if you'd like me to review something we went through earlier, we have more than enough time to do that. Things that we didn't get to that, you know, you might have a question about in terms of setting this up or.
Oh, I do have one question.
Okay.
And I should know this, but I'm brand new, so I don't. How does the NI take this and submit their final grade?
Okay, so we are not yet integrated with our banner system, which I would love one day to be. So
I read about banner and this, and I'm like, well, they have to be connected. No. Okay, I'm gonna take that question.
So what happens is that total score that you see at the end of your grade book, you literally will have to log on to My Writer and go to the grading. Yes, and type it in. So we are not yet integrated. That is on my wish list with OIT to one day get that integration in place so that you could hit a button and say, send these grades from this Canvas course over to Banner. Yeah.
So it goes in My Writer.
Yes, so you would be logging on to My Writer and accessing the grading options from there.
Okay, got it. So you know I'll be in your office asking how to do that.
That's fine. And I'll say, okay, log on to My Writer. Okay, click that link. Yeah.
I'm just
Yeah,
hopefully I'll
that piece
figure it
is
out.
not yet in. Hopefully one day soon. Other schools do it. That's what I say to them. Other schools do it. If they can make it work, we can.
Shame them.
That sometimes backfires, so. Anything else? I feel like it's like a big dump of information. Really, with the gradebook, if you just think of it in terms of, I need that column to show up, so I have to create that assignment in the assignment area and make sure I publish it. Then for everything you want to see in the gradebook, just make sure there's a published assignment in the assignments area. Make sure you've entered a point value, but never panic, because if, for example, I have this interview recording assignment and I have it listed as 15 points. If that is completely incorrect, it's an easy fix. I can simply click on the assignment and edit. Remember, in Canvas, you can always edit. There it is. I can change the point value. I can change where it resides, if this should be in group project and not in that particular group. So remember, everything can be adjusted, updated, changed so that it works the way it should in the course. Some of the things that we see when there are problems, it's because the point value is incorrect here, or an instructor created an assignment that was intended for students to submit online, but it's set to no submission, or it's set to on paper, so students don't actually have the ability to upload and submit. And again, that's also an easy fix. Edit the assignment and change the submission type. Anything else I can answer for you?
Cynthia's probably going to kill me for not ending this. I just have one question on
No,
quizzes.
feel free.
Quizzes, can you put your quiz like directly in here?
So when you say your quizzes,
Like on a, yeah, I
is
just
it
see there's
something-
a quizzes. If you go down under assignments,
Yeah,
it says
so-
quizzes. I just wondered what that was.
if you want them to be able to do the exam online in Canvas timed, you would use quizzes to create it. If they are going to take the quiz in class on paper, you would just create the quiz assignment here. Yeah,
Okay.
this is
Thank you.
only if you want them to be able to take it online.
Okay.
Yeah.
Which hopefully will be in class. So
We'll see. We'll see. I'm getting so nervous. I bought all these back to school clothes for these kids who've been in pajamas for a year and a half. And I was joking with my friends who have kids the same age. I said, listen, these kids have survived with a Chromebook. I don't need a $500 supply list from the schools. Like, knock it off. They didn't need $500 worth of supplies last, yeah. So I'm getting nervous, but we're going to hope for the best.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. This is, as always, really
you're
helpful.
welcome.
Thank you.
I'm going to stop the recording. So you'll get an email from me later as soon as the